Recording in progress.
Okay, shalom everybody. Welcome back, and sorry for the delay, but like we said, there's nice obstacles, I guess, because it's going to be a good class. B'ezrat Hashem. We are continuing with Rav Noson's letters, but let's letter 442. Again, this was given in the year 1843, at the end, the winter of 1843, leading into 1844. This is like a year before Rav Noson passes away, and Rav Noson at this time was writing one of his most amazing discourses in the Likutey Halachot, Birkat Hoda'ah Halachavav, the laws of giving thanks, discourse number 6, which is based on Likutey Moharan lesson 24, and we are picking up how Rav Noson is writing these letters, and in the middle of writing these letters, Rav Noson's attitude, the way he speaks, the way he's talking, the way he's writing things to people. So ultimately they're all connected to this amazing lesson. And there's also, by the way, many of these amazing side points that come out with this lesson, from this letter. So we're continuing where we left off. He's writing a letter to his son, Rav Yitzchak, who lives in nearby Tulchin. Tulchin is about an hour drive south of Breslov. And he's writing to him the following. We already started the letter in previous classes, and we're just continuing where we left off, just going up a few lines because we want to get to the new point that we want to focus on in today's class. So he writes, Rav Noson to his son, Michtavav kibalti ima michtav mirabi Shimshon. I received your letters with the letter that was sent from Rabbi Shimshon. This Rabbi Shimshon we spoke about a lot at length in the last class, about who this Rabbi Shimshon was and what he's doing here in this letter. So now Rav Noson turns himself to his son. V'al odotav, and now regarding you, my son, Rav Yitzchak, kvar hirbeti lichtov lo ma sheyesh bo dai lachayot nafsho. Regarding you, I've already written a lot to you, that which is enough to give you life to your soul. I've written already a lot to give you life to your soul. And now he says this point. Ve'yuter mizeh, and I'm more than what I've written to you, my son. Ayen bisfarav hakdoshim. Look into Rabbi Nachman's holy books, his holy teachings. And he adds, Ubidvarenu ma shezachinu levaer ulechadesh bahem bishuato yitbarach. And in our words, our writings, he's referring to his discourses on the Likutey Halachot, and in my words, in my teachings, that which we merited to expound and enlighten with insights in Rabbi Nachman's teachings with the salvation of Hashem. So Rav Noson, when we take a look carefully, said 3 stages, 3 things. Number 1, what I write to you directly to you, my son, my letters. Number 2, Rabbi Nachman's teachings themselves. Number 3, Rav Noson's elaboration. He's referring to his discourses in the Likutey Halachot on the Likutey Moharan. Okay? So it's 3 things that Rav Noson is mentioning. These 3 things are how Rabbi Nachman's teachings are alive today, even after his passing. To remind everyone, in the world, in the religious world, Breslov has been looked down upon because they lack a living Rebbe. In Yiddish, they were called the Toite Chasidim, the dead Chasidim, because there was only one Rebbe in Breslov, Rabbi Nachman, who lived over 215 years ago. So people can understand, if you don't have a living Rebbe, how could you function? And yet, Breslov has proven to the whole world that not only is it functioning, but they're more alive than anybody else through these teachings, even after Rabbi Nachman's passing. So Rav Noson, he mentioned 3 categories here. I've written to you, this is like a personal, direct correspondence, like an email in a sense, of letters that Rav Noson wrote to his son, as if he's talking to him directly, because it's a personal letter Rav Yitzchak writes, and then Rav Noson answers him back. Okay? So that's like a living connection. Then there's the actual books of Rabbi Nachman. And then Rav Nosson said the third category, his insights into the teachings of Rabbi Nachman. And he says you should look into these three. I've written to you already enough. I've written a lot. I've already written so much to you, my son. Enough that should give you a life. Plus you have Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Plus you have my elaboration on them. These three apply even today. When Rav Nosson says that my letters and the correspondence to you, this today, we don't have Rav Nosson alive either. So this applies a lot to having a personal connection to followers of Rabbi Nachman's teachings. People who received from the previous generation. Yes, there is a transmission in Breslov. There's no new Rebbe. But there are students who receive from the students, who receive from the students. So there is a transmission, a living transmission of Rabbi Nachman's teachings till today. Just no one takes the position as being a Rebbe. There's only one Rebbe. If anything, we are followers of Rabbi Nachman, called Breslover Hasidim, who have learned a lot, whether through seeing actual Breslover Hasidim in their conduct, in their speaking, in what they said, and their comments on Breslov teachings, oral traditions, oral stories, how they acted in certain situations. That is a living example of Shimush. It's called Shimush Chachamim. That applies to Breslover Hasidim today, which is why it's important that when you're learning Breslov, the person you're learning with, learning from, they had accessibility to the previous generation of Breslover Hasidim, who then accessibility to the previous generation, up to 4 or 5 generations, up to Rabbi Nachman. So that is one point. It's mentioned first by Rav Nosson, as if to say it's an important point, but it's based on the upcoming two. So in other words, there is a living connection to followers of Rabbi Nachman. You can technically be a Breslover by the book, reading the books, buying all the BRI books and everything, and you're living in the middle of Nebraska or somewhere out there, and you have no Breslover access, which is not true today, because today, through WhatsApp, through email, through Zoom, through everything, you can have living connection to people today. So it's not there's no excuse today. Baruch Hashem, everything is available wherever you live in the world, right? Even in Timbuktu. So that is a living connection where you have Breslover Hasidim at their maximum in practical application living. Fine. So that's important. But it's based on, more than that, is you have to also learn Rabbi Nachman's teachings. You have people who like the people in Breslov, but they don't know so much about what Rabbi Nachman taught. It's very unfortunate. You have people who are born into Breslov, let's say, and you, as coming from the outside and a newcomer from the outside, you know from the books much more than these people who are born into the Breslov movement. They're like second, third generation Breslovers, but you have an upper hand, and that you have a good grasp of what Rabbi Nachman actually said, so you can combine it with what you see from the Breslover Hasidim. But the third category is very important. It's how Rav Nosson elaborated Rabbi Nachman's teachings. That's what he told his son, right? Let's go back to the wording, okay? He said to his son, I already wrote to you a lot. Now more than this. When he's saying more than this, it's emphasizing that the following has more importance. And what is that? Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Yes, you got to learn Rabbi Nachman's teachings. You know, it's like, I say this analogy many, many times, that you know when you have a chumash, on the top of the page is the actual verses of the Torah. In the middle is the commentary of Rashi, let's say, which is the most common commentary. And then under Rashi are what's called super commentaries, explaining what Rashi is saying, okay? So when you have a chumash, you put the psukim on top, and then you put in the middle the commentary, Rashi, and then you put the super commentaries. You don't flip it, you don't, okay, super commentary, and then Rashi, and then the chumash on the bottom. No, chumash on the top, okay? And then you have the elaboration of Rashi, and then you have the commentaries on Rashi to explain what Rashi is saying. Fine. So too in Breslov, okay, you have to first know what Rabbi Nachman said. Lahavdil, just a comparison of the analogy, Rabbi Nachman's teachings is like on the Chumash, on the top you have the Psukim, so too, what did Rabbi Nachman say, period, okay? And then you have the elaboration of Rav Nosson, and on the bottom is the letters, the actual living application. But you can only chap it in Yiddish, you can only grab it once you have a good understanding of what Rabbi Nachman said, and then a good understanding of how Rav Nosson elaborates what Rabbi Nachman said, and then you can appreciate the letters, the teachings, the oral traditions, because you're coming from a strong background. Rabbi Nachman said this and this and that, and now when Rav Nosson says this, I can understand the ideas that develop. So too here. He started off, my son, I wrote to you a lot, okay? I wrote to you enough to give you life, fine. Now more than this, you have to go back. You can't be dependent just on my letters, my son. You have to fight, because the way Rabbi Yitzchak is talking to his father, it's like, my father, I can't live without your letters. On one hand, we understand that, because if you had access to Rav Nosson today, wouldn't you also be running after him, every second? This beautiful person, this such a helpful person. So I want to go off for a second, that if you ever visited Rabbi Nachman's grave in Uman, and also visited Rav Nosson's grave in Breslov, most people tell me their heart is so open when they go to Breslov, by Rav Nosson's kever, even more than Rabbi Nachman's kever in Uman. Why? Rav Nosson has done so much to bring Rabbi Nachman to the world, and he's helped you so much in your life, whether it's to his prayers. You felt that the prayers, Likutey Tfilot, they're explaining you open heart surgery, 100%. You don't know what to add. You just can cry out of joy and cry out of Hashem. He touched me in such a sensitive spot. I'm just now open. I'm all yours. He gets to you like no other way can. And then in Likutey Alachot, where he takes your mind in understanding ideas of life and opens you to new vistas of such a penetrating way to view life and situations with such encouragement and determination and hope and enthusiasm, you feel more hakarat tov, more owing to Rav Nosson more than Rabbi Nachman. They say in Breslov, Rav Nosson's name is Natan, Nosson. He gives us Rabbi Nachman. You feel it. You feel his teachings are coming to you like unbelievable. It's coming from the Rebbe, but you have such an opening to Rav Nosson. So many people, a lot of people, they feel so open when they get to Rav Nosson's kever more than Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman is the doctor. When you come to him, it's like you're going through a real serious surgery. So it's serious. There is simcha involved in going for those who've merited to be Rabbi Nachman's kever. But it's like you're facing something, wow. It's like, compare Moshe Rabbeinu, an attitude you would have towards Moshe Rabbeinu, whose face is like shining, and you're scared. As opposed to Rav Nosson. Rav Nosson was a more like a Yeshua Binun. Like the Gemara says, Moshe Rabbeinu's face was like shining like the sun. You can't stare directly at it. And Yeshua's complexion, his face was radiating like the moon. The moon I can see. It's light that's manageable. But I can't see directly into the sun. Okay? So too, Rav Nosson gives a filter to actualize Rabbi Nachman's teachings. You need both though. You can't say, so let's push away Rabbi Nachman, let's push away Moshe Rabbeinu, let's just work with Yeshua Binu. No, you need both. You need to hear what the tzaddikim say, and then how the student deciphers, how he explains it. But you need both. You can't now just learn Chumash or Rashi. Okay, let's learn Rashi, everybody. But you don't know what it's going on. You have to see what the verse says. Rashi is saying what he's saying. On what? Where's the basis? That Baruch Hashem, Judaism is not up in the skies. It's basics. There's understanding the structure, which is amazing. In the structure, yes, you have emunah and your challenges and everything. But the structure, there has to be some straightforward, honest structure and learning Torah, which is what the Chumash does. Chumash, and then you have the Rashi and the super commentaries. So too, Rav Nosson is here showing the three levels here. You have what Rabbi Nachman teaches. That's what he's saying. V'yoter mizeh ayen b'srav ha'kedoshin. More than what I spoke to you. First point, my son, look at Rabbi Nachman's teachings. By this time, in the year 1843, all of Rabbi Nachman's teachings were printed by then. The Likutey Moharan was printed, the stories, the Aleph Bet book. Rav Nosson spent time eventually printing the Sichot Haran, Rabbi Nachman's conversations and Rabbi Nachman's wisdom, and it was circulating. Likutey Moharan, the book Tzaddik, it wasn't yet printed, but was circulating. And Rav Nosson's son for sure had access to all of this. Plus, whenever Rav Nosson wrote discourses or prayers, because the prayers also were printed already, and Likutey Alachot was not yet printed, it was being printed this year, but only the first section. So what do the Breslov Hasidim have from Rav Nosson's discourses? Copies, handwritten copies of what Rav Nosson wrote, his discourses. That's what Rav Yitzchak had. That's what Rav Nosson is referring to when he says the next thing. Ubidvarenu ma shezachinu levaer ulechadesh bahem bishoato yitbarach. and look in our insights, the Breslovers would grab what Rav Nosson would write, like a week. So then the Breslover Chassid would come visiting Rav Nosson, and they would spend time copying what Rav Nosson wrote. So they can take back with them from the various villages they came from. If it was Teplik, Tulchin, Nemirov, Uman, wherever, they would have a copy from what they copied in Rav Nosson's writings until it was eventually printed, okay? So these are 3 levels that apply even today. You have Rabbi Nachman's teachings, you have Rav Nosson, how he explains Rabbi Nachman's teachings, and then you have the super commentary, which is like the living Breslover Chassidim, the actual Chassidim in here that you in this generation, that you can speak to, relate to, even casual conversation, especially casual conversation, because that's where the inner essence really comes out. Even if it's covered up of a lot of mundanity and jokes, whatever, but there's points that come out in the casual conversations. Rav Nosson once said, I received more from Rabbi Nachman's conversations more than his lessons in Likutey Moharan. You hear this? I received much more from Rabbi Nachman's conversations that he gave, much more from them than from the actual lessons in Likutey Moharan. You would think the opposite. Wow, the lesson in Likutey Moharan, oh my God, such depth, such beauty, such structure, and psukim, and verses, and midrashim, and gemaras, and concepts, and everything just flying here left and right. Unbelievable, right? And yet Rav Nosson said, what I received more from Rabbi Nachman was from his conversation. Because the conversation is where a tzaddik is, in a sense, lowering himself to a closer level to the person. So too, by the Breslover Chassidim, there's the idea of, yes, learning Breslov, learning lesson, learning Rabbi Nachman, learning the Breslov books, but you need access to the people to pick up the things which are hidden. There's many reasons for why it's like that. One of them is because this world is with such challenges, especially from this concept of the Chamber of Exchanges, which hopefully we'll go into as we develop more everything on this lesson, the Likutey Moharan lesson 24. The Chamber of Exchanges doesn't allow for straightforward purity and truth to be shown in the world. Everything has to be zigzag. Everything has to be upside down and this and that. You know, everything. It's like the famous expression given by the Rebbe of Tosh, Alav Shalom, the Rebbe of Tosh from Montreal, Quebec. He would say, they're Jews without beards, and they're beards without Jews. They reach a level that, you know, everything is so upside down. You can have a Jew look so modern, clean-shaven, and yet he's like holding at the level of the biggest tzaddikim. But what? Look at him, cool, muscular, and this and that, and yet he's holding at a high level. Okay? And yet other guy with nice beard and pants, and you see how he eats the kugel and the cake. You say, what in the world? What's happened? And also, within that, you have a person who eats the way he eats, and is hidden tzaddik. Like Rabbi Nachman spoke about the preacher, the darshan from Brody, that he was eating and eating and eating, and the Baal Shem Tov was upset that the people were making fun of him by giving him more food, and then the Baal Shem Tov wanted to hear his Torah, his drasha, and he said after the Baal Shem Tov that this is a hidden tzaddik, and his Torah comes from Eliyahu Hanavi. And he was eating and fat and everything, and you begin to wonder him to have Torah, everything's mixed up, okay? So because of that, conversation with tzaddikim, and in our context with the Breslover Chassidim, is a main way to receive, even if it's mixed up with a lot of mundanity and jokes and acting weird and mundane and talk about money issues. Within all this comes ideas of holiness. But this is the way. It's zigzag, okay? So that's why it's so needed, so necessary to have access to the rest of our Chassidim. But again, it's like the super commentary. It's built on a Rashi, which is Rav Nosson's teachings, and Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Rabbi Nachman said that no one in the world understands me except for Rav Nosson. So if that's the case, I have to work hard to see how Rav Nosson explains Rabbi Nachman, and not how I explain Rabbi Nachman. You understand that? He said, if Rabbi Nachman is saying, you want to try to understand me? Forget it. Only Rav Nosson. He says, only Rav Nosson understands it, and he said even a little. But that means, and the rest of the world, nothing. So if that's the case, that's where it's holding, I have to use Rav Nosson's lens, his prescription, to understand Rabbi Nachman. To learn Rabbi Nachman, yes, to have in your pocket what Rabbi Nachman said. Okay, next level, practical. We need Rav Nosson. Rav Nosson's writings, his discourses, Likutey Halachot, his prayers that he wrote on the lessons, which explain the lessons. And then the super commentary is, okay, how do I bring this to my life? The conversations of the Breslover Hasidim. You need all three, okay? So Rav Nosson is hinting to these three in what he said. I've written to you a lot, to my son. More than this, you have Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Okay? Look in his teachings, in his holy books, and in our teachings that we're zoche to expound and elucidate and to give insights in his teachings with Hashem's salvation. When you learn Likutey Moharan with Likutey Halachot and Likutey Tfilot, it's dynamite. I know for most people it's like very advanced, because these books for now, in the main, are for accessibility for people who understand Hebrew. Likutey Halachot is slowly getting translated, but it's slowly. In the meantime, you have, thank God, Likutey Moharan in English, Rav Nosson's prayers. But the Likutey Halachot is such a, he said himself, Rav Nosson, it's the Gan Eden itself. It's the actual taste of Hashem's Gan Eden. It's Likutey Halachot. Someone who's never tasted it, it's hard to explain this. It's the part of Breslov that's still missing by people in the English world, because that's the one book that has not yet been fully translated. Okay, and it's going to take a long time. Bezat Hashem, it should come out. But this missing piece of the puzzle is so powerful. When you combine the three, there's a hint. I mentioned this before also. Rabbi Nachman said in his book Tzaddik Likutey Moharan, the conversations of Rabbi Nachman, if the world were to taste one of my lessons, and the dance on that lesson, and the melody on that lesson, the combination of the lesson, the words, plus the dance and the melody, that combination would make people be totally nullified. And he said, I mean the whole world, even the bees and the grasses, all four sections of creation would be totally nullified of the beauty of this combination. So here's a hint to what we just mentioned. If the world were to taste one of his teachings in the Likutey Moharan with the dance. Dancing is with the legs, the feet. The feet are the vehicle that we also walk. When you're dancing, you're technically walking, but in dancing mode. So that's a hint to, we can say, Rav Nosson's book called Likutey Halachot. The collection of halachot. Halacha means law. Halacha means you walk. Halacha. Why is law called halacha? Because the Torah law is guiding you how to walk in life. A child doesn't know how to walk, you have to teach him how to walk. So too a Jew doesn't know what to do for halacha. Who tells you how to keep Shabbat, the laws of kashrut, the laws of blessings, the laws of shatnez, the laws of tzniut, of women's modesty? Where do you have all that? In Shulchan Aruch, the code of Jewish law. That's how I know what to do. So halacha is called halacha because it teaches you how to walk. Rav Nosson's discourse is called Likutey Halachot because he was based on the code of Jewish law. It's not a book of halacha, by the way, but it gives the background perspective of why the halacha is like this. Why are the tefillin black and square? Why the tzitzit? All based on Rabbi Nachman's introductions and teachings in the Likutey Moharan. Rav Nosson opens up on a more deeper level, a more related level that you can really connect to. Okay? So going back, if the world were to taste, Rabbi Nachman said, one of my lessons with its accompanying dance. Dance is like an indication to Likutey Halachot, because the discourses of Likutey Halachot are based on Likutey Moharan, plus the accompanying melody, nigun. Okay, nigun is one of the 10 types of song. Okay, Ashrei Bracha Maskeh Shenitzuach Nigun. There's 10 types of melody of song, which include prayer. Prayer is considered an accompaniment of the 10 types of song. That's why the Tikkun HaKlali involves saying psalms, which are technically prayers, words of prayer from King David. Okay, so prayers indicating Rav Nosson's book on prayers, Likutey Tfilot, how they work the prayers. Each prayer is based on a different lesson, Likutey Moharan, and explains the lesson, but in prayer format. So going back, if the world were to taste a discourse in Likutey Moharan, with the accompanying discourses in Likutey Halachot on that lesson in Likutey Moharan, and the prayer on that lesson, the combination is dynamite. A person can actually lose it. Now, lose it in the positive sense, that they lose their free will. After tasting such an experience, most people haven't tasted this. Many Jewish people today are going after meditation and all types of therapy, but this type of therapy, which is breslov-therapy, by the way, it's unheard of. People haven't tasted it yet. They haven't seen what's out there, having the emotion, the intellectual enlightenment, and the heart emotion of the mind being opened up by Rabbi Nachman's teachings, and the heart by Rabbi Noson's prayers, and the legs, what to do through Likutey Halachot. It's a whole structure. Mind, heart, and legs. It's a whole structure, breast of teachings. You have no idea what you got yourselves into, people. It's unbelievable. It's a whole structure of healing, complete healing from head to toe, going through the whole construct. It's phenomenal. If people were to taste this, they would drop everything else and know to run to Rabbi Nachman's teachings, with Rabbi Noson's teachings, as a complete healing for everything, whether it's physical ailments and especially spiritual ailments. That's the phenomena about these teachings. And it could very well be, and it's brought down in Rabbi Noson's writings, that the reason why people are being hit with such crazy problems and difficulties and sicknesses and maladies, psychological, mental, emotional, that we never heard about when we grew up. It's just getting worse and worse and worse with the internet and everything. The reason why it's so bad is because there is a matching and even greater level of good out there that people are not accessing. Whether it's because of the conflict and the concealment in the world, the conflict between tzaddikim and Jewish groups, religious groups in the Torah, in the religious world. All this causes that these teachings can't get out. And because they can't get out, people can't appreciate and use them. And because people can't appreciate and use them, so they get weighed down by the difficulties of life, which are out there because there's a matching good available that they're not using, not accessing. So it's our wish, our hope, to spread as much as possible Rabbi Nachman's healing, Rabbi Nachman's teachings, and we're doing everything possible through the letters, the Likutey Moharan, Likutey Halachot, insights in the Parsha, every way to get this light out as best as we can. Even if there'll be buffers and barriers from people and obstacles, Breslov, what do you guys know, this and that, and the cuckoo people, they just jump on the cars with their white kippas and their payas flying in the air and they don't know what they're doing. To bypass all that with B'ezrat Hashem, a pursuit of the truth, that should make you so happy that you have landed on these teachings. Instead of looking down at the rest of the world, they don't know what they're missing. I have the fortune to know about these teachings, to have access to such beauty. It's unbelievable. Rav Nosson, in his letters, he says again and again, Ashreinu, Ashreinu, Ashreinu. You don't know, my son, how fortunate we are that we're not opposed to such a tzaddik. How fortunate we are that we learn his teachings and we try to do our best to follow them. Our portion, even if we're so far from Hashem, we're still very far, and we've even farther, still, what we've landed on is worth more than all the gold in the world. You'd write me a check for a few $1 billion or this, I would choose this. I would choose this because the truth radiating from this is so powerful, is so far-reaching, it outmatches anything this world can offer. Because these teachings show that there's nothing worth in this world. It's all worthless. It's only when you connect this world for the sake of Hashem and the Torah and the mitzvah, then there's a value. But now to give me this world in exchange for what I'm tasting here, Kol chafatzim lo yishvuba. The verse reads, all physical matter you try to present to me comes nothing close to this. So it's a reminder of how Rav Nosson talks to his son. It's a reminder to us we are so lucky, so fortunate that we have been handpicked by Rabbi Nachman to be open to learn these teachings. And many people, nonsense, they don't see, and they just close and they go elsewhere. And they lose out in the end. They lose there, and they lost here. And it's sometimes forever, Rav Nosson writes in his prayers, because of the strife and conflict, people have lost this world and the next world. Shem Rachem. He writes that in one of his prayers in Likutey Tefillot. So it's a reminder how fortunate we are to know of these amazing, amazing teachings. Okay, so let's go on. He's telling his son, you have access to all three. My letters that I spoke to you, wrote to you already, and also physical contact. Rabbi Yitzchak would come to his father very often, and he would speak to him also then. So he had that actual physical contact to a Breslover Chassid. Okay, number 2, Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Number 3, his insight, Rav Nosson's development of Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Because again, Rabbi Nachman, you can take a look at this nicely set out in the book Through Fire and Water. Through Fire and Water is a book I highly recommend to everybody to read, even a few times, to go over the book. I personally have read it maybe over 10 times, Through Fire and Water. It's a book which has to be ingrained, because you see the value of Rav Nosson in the picture of Breslov and what he has to offer. So Rabbi Nachman said to Rav Nosson, I'm going to give you as a gift to open your mind in my teachings, and you can travel and develop them and everything, like going in a palace from chamber to chamber to see the beauty. It's not yours, but I allow you to access it. Okay? And you see that. You see Rav Nosson, on one book, Likutey Moharan, he wrote 8 books, 8 volumes. Likutey Halachot is 8 volumes. That's why it's taking so long to translate. It's over 3,800 double column pages, okay, on how to be a Jew. Every access of life, every aspect of life is there in Likutey Halachot, and it's all built on one book. Likutey Moharan is like a small book compared to Rav Nosson's Likutey Halachot, but he's explaining it, elaborating it, bringing it down. That's why it's so important to learn. Okay, so we have these 3 levels. And then Rav Nosson says like this: Shekulam Novim midvarav me'anachal novea mekor chochma. That all of my insights that I've written, he's saying on the last thing that he mentioned, shekulam, that all my insights that I've written in his Likutey Halachot, they novea, they come from a source, like a water source, novea. They're coming out from a source. They're rooted in the words of. And this is a verse, we're going to go into this verse today, from the Nachal Novea Mekor Chochma. This is a verse from Proverbs. Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 4. Nachal Novea Mekor Chochma translates as Nachal Novea, a brook, a river. Novea, that's flowing. That means that there's a source and it's flowing from at that source, which is Mekor Chochma, a source of wisdom. So a flowing brook, a source of wisdom. Okay? The first letters, Nachal, Nun, Novea, Nun, Mekor, Mem, Chochma, Chet, spell out, Nachman. Okay? This Rabbi Nachman said about himself. Okay? There's so much to do here. Let's first analyze this verse. What is the verse saying? The whole verse reads like this. This is verse 4, again, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 4. The verse reads like this. There's a few interpretations. Let's try to stick with Rashi, because the other commentaries, they don't say exactly like Rashi. They say other things. Everybody says amazing points, but the Metzudat David, which is normally the Pshat explanation of the Tanakh, of the Bible, of the prophets, he doesn't say exactly like Rashi says. Let's focus on Rashi. So the translation first of all. Maim amukim divrei pi ish. Deep waters are the words of the mouth of man. The Targum translates like this, the verse. Maya amike pume de gavra. Right? Like we said, deep waters is the mouth of man. The verse says the words of the mouth of man, but it means the pume, the mouth of the man, his words. And it continues, this as Rashi explains it also, continuation to this, the words of the Pi'ish, which we said are deep waters, are also Nachal Novea, a flowing brook, a source of wisdom. So Rashi is pointing out also, we're going to see Rashi, there's 2 things. There's a deep water. Water means it's sitting, doesn't mean that it's flowing, it's not moving. So there's Maim Amukim, deep waters. That's one thing. And then to say a flowing brook is another thing. So he's saying the words of a man are deep waters. Ish. He's saying not any man. Special men. The outstanding tzaddikim are called Ish. Whoever merits the term of being a man. Those are the tzaddikim. Their words are so profound. They're deep waters. They can say a statement, and then you can spend 1,000 years elaborating on them, which is exactly what's happened. For example, the rabbis make a statement in the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Zohar, the Midrash, and then 1,000 years later, people are still trying to develop and understand what they're saying. Okay? The words are just endless. Then forget about the words of the Chumash, which is Hashem's words. But now the words of the tzaddikim who come to elaborate and to say statements on the Torah, they are so deep. They're deep waters. To say, hey, don't think he's like shallow, an ignoramus. When he hears the Torah scholars speak, he thinks he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like very superficial. The truth is exact opposite. The words of Talmidei Chachamim who've earned the caliber of being called an ish, their words are deep. Maim amukim, divrei pi ish. That's number one. But more than that, when you say deep, that means you have to dive in. You have to go dive in order to get something. That makes sense. That is true. For the depth of the Torah, you really have to dive in. You have to be eligible. You have to be a candidate. You have to have worked hard to get to that level. It's true. The Torah is called deep waters. The words of the sages, deep waters. So I have to dive in. Okay. But now, the Pi'ish, he also allows accessibility to his words, which is the follow-up here. Nachal Novea, a flowing brook. His words are also a flowing brook. What's a brook? A flowing river. You can walk into it. I can walk into it. It's flowing, so I have to be careful not to have grip, not to get flown away with it. But if it's flowing and it's a brook, I can technically stand in and I can take my bucket and take water. I can have practical usage from the water in a flowing brook. And at the same time, it's a flowing brook which has in it a source of wisdom. So in other words, the pi'ish, the words of the mouth of this man, this holy tzaddik, on one hand there's depth. Oh my God, how am I going to go and have to dive in? It's like I stand back, then I'm not ready for this. It's so much, that's one attitude. But this tzaddik, he allows accessibility. He also is a flowing brook. A brook, I can go into the brook and go swimming. It's okay. I can stand on the ground of the sea floor of the floor of the brook of the river. I can stand there, no problem. And it's still, he puts mekor chokhmah, the source of the wisdom, in that brook. What in the world? I would think the mekor chokhmah would be in the mayim amukim, in the deep waters. That's where I can find it. I have to go deep to now try to figure out where's the source of the wisdom. Here he's saying no. He makes it accessible that even though it's a flowing brook, it's still a source of wisdom. Source of wisdom means I can gain, not just a little, I can connect to the root, even though I'm superficial level, even though I'm surface level, because of my low stature, my still level, it's a nachal novea, it's a nachal, but it's flowing. You have to also, they say in Breslov tradition, that you have to be careful. If you're not strongly rooted, so the brook will flow, will just like knock you down, and you just get flown with the stream, and you won't be able to do anything. So that's the danger. That's that. If now we go to about Breslov, many people come to Breslov out of a lot of lights, a lot of extreme lights above their true level, and they fall into that trap of doing things based on the light, as opposed to being grounded. Because the whole thing about Breslov is, on one hand, you're given accessibility to big lights, but you have to at the same time, like two opposites, be grounded. Grounded in halacha, not to forget the code of Jewish law, not to say, it's a big light, so I'm going to spend the whole night in a farbrengen until shacharit, and then fall asleep at shacharit, and then lose out. There's halachas in life. There's guidelines, okay? So if now you follow the trap of the light and go with it and do things based on it, and not to remind you to remember, wait a second, there's halacha, I have to make sure I'm on time for this, I have a schedule, not to now forget my family, forget my kids, and just throw everything for Breslov. No, I have to have a structure, I have to have that systematic thing that lets you stand in the flowing brook. And you gain, you glean, you fill your buckets with it, but you're standing. If you don't, then you get knocked down and flown down in the stream. That's what they say in Breslov teachings. But here, the chidush is, even though it's a flowing brook, what you're taking in it is a makor, source of wisdom. Meaning, what you're going to gain is going to help you so much in life. Rabbi Nachman once said, every advice I give helps a person in this world, in the grave, in the future resurrection, in the world to come, and in the very end of days. It's so far-reaching, he said, his advice. It's not just okay to survive this world. What I give you guys to do, if it's halacha every day, if it's the Uman Rosh Hashanah trips that you did, if it's hitbodedut every day, if it's the idea of going to the mikveh, the tikkun haklali, all the advices we glean from Rabbi Nachman's teachings, he said they're so far-reaching, they'll help you now in the physical existence of this world. In the grave, it'll help you. In the world to come, when you go up to the heavenly court, and in the future resurrection of the dead, it'll still be accessible. It'll still be applicable even then. Okay, that's how far-reaching it is. Okay, so I just wanted to see, Rashi inside. The Targum is basically the same words. Nachala de navia mabua de chokhmata, like we translated. Let's see Rashi. Mekor chokhma. That's the end of the verse. Rashi works on the end, a source of wisdom. Kenachal novea uchemayim amukim, like we said, like a flowing brook and like deep waters, divrei fi ish. The words of a man, of the mouth of a man, someone who's a ish. Look, Rashi is amazing. Kol ish sheba mikra. Whenever it says ish in the Torah, in the verses, in the scriptures, leshon gibor gadol bigvurahu. It's referring to a super duper strong warrior of bigvura. And who's a warrior? Who's a warrior? Pirkei Avot. Ezeu gibor hakovesh et yitzro. Who is a strong man? Someone who can control his ta'avot, his yitzhara, his tendencies. That's the gibor, not the guy 500 muscles, 500 kilos of muscles, right? In the WWF, whatever. And that's not the gibor, and not the gibor. The people who go to fight in battle, okay, the physical battles. That is a gibor, but not the gibor enough to save us. The gibor to save Am Yisrael are the tzaddikim at the caliber that they have the gibor to kovesh yitzro, to conquer the yitzhara. They see a chocolate on the table, they're not dependent on that. They see a man and woman the same. They don't have a sexual tendency driving them nuts. That's a gibor, okay? So this is the gibor they're referring to. This is the ish, the man. And he has the both qualities, nachal novea and mayim amuki. So now, let's go back to Rav Nosson in the letter. That's the verse, okay? So Rav Nosson is saying, all my words, all my insights, they emanate from kulam novim. All of them are novea, are emanating, are flowing from the words of the nachal novea mekor chochma, the flowing brook, the source of wisdom. So who is the nachal novea mekor chochma? For this we have to go now to the book Tzaddik, the book Likutey Moharan. I'm going to read to you. This is paragraph 189 in the Hebrew edition. In the English, it has in brackets. It says in brackets 189, and it says another numbering. So you have to know how to find this in the. It's in the section called Rabbi Nachman's Journey to Uman. So here, I'm going to read to you what happened. Rav Nosson is writing this biography here, this incident in the year 1810, 6 months before Rabbi Nachman passed away. He was traveling to Uman from Breslov. His house was burned down. And at the same time, he received the invitation from the leading maskilim, the enlightened secular Jews in Uman, to come to Uman. And at the same time, Rabbi Nachman had sent earlier one of his disciples to find them an apartment, and they did. All this happened at the same time. Rabbi Nachman's house was burned. He got the message from the maskilim to come, and Rabbi Nachman's disciple found them an apartment. It all happened like, the timing was just crazy. Absolutely crazy, the timing, okay? So, Baderech, Rav Nosson writes, on the way from Breslov to Uman, by wagon, if by car it's about 2 hours, so by wagon it's like 4-6 hours, okay, back then. Baderech be'et nesiato le'Uman, on the way Rabbi Nachman was traveling to Uman, Anav Amar, he said, Rabbi Nachman said the following, Afal pichen, Hashem Yitbarach ozer liYisrael tamid. Nonetheless, after everything, Hashem, blessed be He, always helps the Jewish people. Ve'en dor yatom, and there's no generation that's orphaned. There's no orphaned generation. Uchmo she'amar Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, Keshe'amar, one second, I got the wrong page. Keshe'amar is a Tana, when a certain Tana from the Mishnah in the time of the Mishnah said, it's brought down in the Gemara, Atida, this is, by the way, if you know where it is, Tet Zayin, one second, this is Masechet Shabbat, page 138, okay? Tana said, Atida Torah shetishtakach miYisrael. The rabbis were mentioning in the Gemara what's going to happen to the Jewish people before Mashiach comes. And they said, one of the statements they made was, the Torah is going to be forgotten from the Jewish people. When that Tana said that, and it's brought down in the Gemara, Ana Rabbi Shimon V'amar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai stood up and said the following, Love, no, that's not true. Ki b'Zohar da yifkun min galota. Through my book, the Zohar, the Jews will come out of exile. Okay? So in other words, the Torah won't be forgotten through the Zohar. Ki lo, and then he said the verse. What's the verse he said? Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro. What's added here by Rav Nosson is from the Zohar. In other words, the Zohar says parts of this story with different ideas than the Gemara. So here Rav Nosson joined them together. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said the reason why the Torah is not going to be forgotten, he said in the Zohar, because through his book of the Zohar, the Jews will come out of exile, so there'll be hope for the Jewish people to still be learning Torah and having a Jewish brain before Mashiach comes. But the Gemara says, the Rabbi Shimon quoted a verse. The verse reads, this is from the end of the Chumash, end of the Torah, Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro, for Parshat Azinu, I think. Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro, Dvarim, chapter 31, verse 21. The Torah says itself that the Torah will not be forgotten from his offspring. So Rabbi Shimon says, you're saying, you Tana, you said the Torah is going to be forgotten. Rabbi Shimon stood up and said, but the Torah says itself, Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro. The Torah will not be forgotten from his offspring. So Rabbi Shimon had some basis to say what he's saying. V'al ken amad atzmo al zeh pasuk. This is why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai specifically chose this verse. He could have found another verse. He chose this specific verse which reads from Dvarim, the Torah will not be forgotten from his offspring, meaning from the descendants of the Jewish people, which is basically us today before Mashiach comes, us, and if we have to wait more, our future descendants. The Torah will not be forgotten from that last generation, okay? From their offspring, the final offspring. Now he's saying, Rabbi Nachman, Rav Nosson's writing this, that Rabbi Nachman said this, Al ken amad atzmo zeh pasuk. Specifically, Rabbi Shimon chose this verse, Ki lo tishachach mi pi zaro, for the Torah will not be forgotten from his offspring. He chose this verse specifically, V'gila az hasod hanitpas b'Likutey Moharan alav b'tchilato. And Rabbi Nachman revealed the secret why Rabbi Shimon chose this verse, as is brought down in the prologue to Likutey Moharan. If you have access to Likutey Moharan Volume 1 in the English, you have the prologue there, which is this whole discussion here. In short, it's basically the last letters of this verse. Ki, Yud, Lo, Aleph, Tishachach, Chet, Mipi, Yud, Zaro, Vav, spell out Rabbi Shimon's father's name, Yochai. Right, you saw that? Yud, Ki, Lo as Aleph, Chet, Yud, Vav, Yochai. Yud, Vav, Chet, Aleph, Yud. Rearranged, the letters Yochai. For the Torah will not be forgotten from the mouth of his offspring. It's written, the verse reads it in singular, and when you read it, you understood from the offspring of the Jewish nation in a singular tense. But Rabbi Nachman says it's specifically his offspring. Whose offspring? Who's he? The person hinted to in the verse. Who's hinted to in the verse? The last letters, Yochai. The offspring of Yochai, who is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, through him the Torah will not be forgotten, which is what Rabbi Shimon said in the Zohar. Rabbi Shimon said in the Zohar that through the Zohar, my book, the Zohar, the Torah will not be forgotten. So he's connecting. Rabbi Nachman connects what he says in the Zohar to what he says in the Gemara, which is an amazing insight, okay? So that's when, on the journey from Breslov to Uman, Rabbi Nachman revealed this teaching. That's what Rabbi Nosson is saying here. Ayin Sham, Migdulat Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. See there in the prologue to Likutey Moharan about the greatness of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So Rabbi Nosson, when he heard this, like us, when I heard this the first time, Rav Nosson was so amazed, so moved. Rav Nosson said the following statement to Rabbi Nachman: "Aniti ve'amarti lo." So then Rav Nosson was riding with Rabbi Nachman in the carriage. There were also a few other people. So Rav Nosson spoke up after Rabbi Nachman said this, and I said to him, "Wow, Rabbi Shimon yesh lo gam ken bevadai hanaa mizeh." He said, definitely, Rav Nosson said to Rabbi Nachman, definitely, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai must have, after hearing your insight, like his neshama is hearing this, he must be having tremendous delight from your insight, Rabbi Nachman. That you're innovating, you're revealing in this verse, Yochai, who would have thought of this? Okay? Hainu mizeh chidush hanifla. Rabbi Shimon must be gaining tremendous benefit. Rabbi Nosson said to Rabbi Nachman, from this awesome, wondrous new insight that you just revealed. Heshiv, Rabbi Nachman answered, yes, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is gaining mustama, most probably he's gaining delight from this insight. Achar kach ana ve'amar. Wow, get ready for this, guys. So right after that, Rabbi Nachman spoke up and said the following to Rav Nosson and whoever was there. Rabbi Shimon ba'atzmo hu inyan acher. Rabbi Shimon himself is another concept, is a totally different concept. Okay? In other words, he wants to show there's the offspring of Yochai, fine. doesn't tell us so much about Rabbi Shimon. It's just making a statement that the offspring of Yochai, which is Rabbi Shimon, through him the Torah will not be forgotten. Okay? Fine. That's for the Jewish people as a whole. Now he says, but Rabbi Shimon himself, who is Rabbi Shimon from the perspective of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? What is he? What does he represent for the Jewish people as a whole? Fine, his mission, he's going to save the Jewish people from not having the Torah forgotten. Okay, that's what's happening today with the Zohar, Lag Bomer, etc. Okay? But Rabbi Shimon himself, he says, is a totally different thing. What's his thing? His concept? Ki Rabbi Shimon, who Rabbi Shimon is hinted to in another verse from the book of Daniel, Ir v'kadish min shemaya nachit. A holy one, Ir is an Aramaic, it's in Aramaic, which means like an angel, and the holy one that from heaven came down, min shemaya nachit. And it's a verse, believe it or not, in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. There's some details here. Yutet. It's from Daniel, right? He's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. That in the dream, he said, I saw a heavenly angel, celestial, holy entity come down from heaven. So Rabbi Nachman says, take a look at the first letters of this verse. So it's Ir, Ayin, Vekadish, Vav, Min, Mem, Shemaya, Shin, Nachit, Nun. That spells out Shimon. And he's saying, Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's thing is that he's like a holy entity that came down from above down to this world. You should know, as a child, we grew up, I came from a very Moroccan background, and always as a child, we had Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's like a painting, whatever, I made a picture of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on the wall, and my parents, inculcated me the Zohar, Rabbi Shimon, like a fear of these tzaddikim, and a panic, no one learns Zohar because it's scary, you're going to burn, it's fire, there's like a sense of major respect and a fear in all of these tzaddikim. And what Rabbi Nachman is saying here is illustrating that, because he's saying that Rabbi Shimon's thing is like a celestial entity, an angel, a holy celestial angel coming down from heaven. So in saying that, he's saying Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes to bring to the world the idea of the presence of tzaddikim and their power. And Rabbi Nosson writes, Kadit Pas Sham, as is printed there in the prologue to Likutey Moharan. And then after saying this, Rabbi Nachman said the following, V'achshav yesh nachal novea mekor chokhmah. But now, that was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But now, in other words, now that I, Rabbi Nachman, am here, and we spoke about this once, how tzaddikim can speak so high terms about them. There's not the time for that. That's another class. Rabbi Nachman said about himself, but now there is a nachal novea mekor chokhmah. But now there is this verse, Mishlei, chapter 18, verse 4, there is a flowing brook, a source of wisdom, referring to himself. Okay? And there's an etc. here. The etc. is because if people will hear the continuation of the statement, they'll flip out. I will tell you guys, because you have accepted to hear Rabbi Nachman's teachings, the continuation, which is considered like a hashmata. It was taken out of the book Chai Moran Tzaddik, and it was collected elsewhere. And more recently, the Breslov Chassidim have put it back in, including the English translation. You can see it there in brackets, like triangle brackets. The continuation is, but now there's a flowing brook, a source of wisdom, that even the Ir V'Kadish Min Shemaya Nachit, even the holy celestial entity who came down from heaven, in other words, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, has to receive from there. Okay, I know this is shocking for people to hear, but he's saying that even Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai has to receive from me, from the Nachal Novea Mekor Chokhmah, Nachman. Okay, crazy. The world can't. Other people they go nuts sharing this, but we are sharing this because that's it. We need extreme teachings of the greatness of the tzaddikim to help us, because it's so bad now. It is so bad, so bad with what people are going. No more hiding. That's it. Let us reveal Breslov to the maximum that it can. That's available. That is written down so that people can appreciate. It's like a doctor. You go to a doctor, you want to trust the doctor. So the doctor has to put all of his degrees on the wall. He graduated from here. He has a degree in this and the finances. He's like, well, you show off? Show off? I want you to trust me. So the tzaddikim also, they have to boast It's not a blemish at all. It's not a dent in humility. Humility is like Moshe Rabbeinu can write about himself, and Moshe was the humblest man in the world, walking on earth. So if you are, then why are you writing this on yourself? That shows you if he's writing it on himself, that means how you understand humility is not that point. Okay, so Rabbi Nachman is boasting, literally boasting. Why? So that you should trust him. Look what he's saying, that even Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai now is not enough. He has to receive from me. So in other words, his statement that to the Zohar, the Jews will come out of exile, it's true, but the Zohar itself, its opening for revelation is through Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Again, tell the world this, they'll flip out. It's to you guys who are listening to Rabbi Nachman's teachings and have an acceptance, seeing how these teachings have changed your life, so you're more open to hear such a statement by Rabbi Nachman. Okay? So Rabbi Nachman is saying he's a Nachal Noveh Mikol Chochmah, period. That even the Rabbi Shimon has to receive from there. We'll have to explain this. I'd like to explain this point right now. What's the difference? What's the difference from the first verse, Ir v'kadish min shemay nachit, to Nachal Noveh Mikol Chochmah? The difference is the Nachal Noveh. Okay? Ir v'kadish, a holy celestial entity, like an angel that comes from heaven. So he's coming down with his grandeur and holiness to help the Jewish people. Fine. Rabbi Nachman went a step further, and he says, I'm now giving handles to people. I'm a Nachal Noveh. You can go into the Nachal. You go swimming. You want to go swimming? Come swim. No problem. Go in the flowing brook. Be careful though. Don't get carried away by the stream. But you can go into a stream it's not so deep. I can stand in it. Okay? And access Mekor Chochmah, the source of wisdom. Okay? The source of wisdom. What is the source of wisdom? From where it all began, from where the Zohar is taking its teachings. That's where Rabbi Nachman is taking Mekor Chochmah and giving it to simpletons, giving it to simple people. He's spoon feeding you. You go in the Nachal, you can take a jug, a canister, fill it with water, and you can access it in your life. You're going through crazy things. So, because you're going through crazy things, they're accessing you to the highest levels possible. Nachon, I'm not perfect. Nachon, I'm this and that. So I'm supposed to die, I'm supposed to rot. That's Judaism, that's it. No. The tzaddikim come to take from the highest level possible and spoon feed. Gerber, you know Gerber, Huggies, whatever, you know, Gerber food. The highest level to people who are literally sick, spiritually sick, which is us today. So this is the advantage, because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is coming with his presence. When you hear the verse, Ir v'kadish, whoa, it's like all the attention is on the tzaddik, which on one hand, it's true, there has to be a big respect and honor to the tzaddikim, but what about me? So I'm like little and shriveled up, and I'm never going to change, and all the tzaddikim, I love the tzaddikim, I ask you to daven for me, and protect me and everything, but I want to change. I don't want to stay like this for the rest of my life. I also want to become a tzaddik. I also want to come close to Hashem. I need something more than that. That's the Nachal Noveh. So Nachman is saying, but now there's a Nachal Noveh Mikol Chochmah. Okay? Unbelievable. That's from the book Likutey Moharan. And just the continuation is the final line of this paragraph. Again, paragraph 189. Gam kvar nishma, Rav Nosson adds. And also, anyways, it was already heard from Rabbi Nachman's lips. Sha'amar al atzmo, that he said about himself, another similar statement earlier. Shehu nahar ametaher mikol aktamim. Rabbi Nachman said about himself, I am a nahar. There's a nachal, which is a brook. It's smaller. A nahar is like a river. I am a nahar, a river that purifies from all stains. He said about himself. So Rav Nosson is joining that with this statement, this later statement of Rabbi Nachman, that he's a nachal novea. Nachal is a brook. It's easier to go into. A river, it can be a big river. Jordan River, right? It can be big. Not like today where it's pincy. But how the Jordan River used to be before they drained it, whatever. So a river can be big. You know, the Don River, all these rivers that they have all over the world. A river is big. Okay? You have to swim across together. You have to take a boat, okay? But a nachal, a brook, is easier. It's smaller. So Rabbi Nachman has lowered himself even lower to the level of a brook. So Rabbi Nachman already said about himself that he is a nahar, a river, and now he's saying also he's a brook. Accessibility to help people to change. He said, Rabbi Nachman, he said in the book Tzaddik, I didn't come to this world for myself. I came to this world to help bring back the Jewish people back to Hashem. Period. I came to help Am Yisrael. I'm not here for myself. I'm here to help the Jewish people. When you think about it, Rabbi Nachman said, whoever comes to my grave and gives a coin in my memory and says the Tikkun HaKlali, I promise I will flip the heavens, the worlds, to help pull this person out of Gehenna, no matter what he may have done. Rabbi Nachman said, a coin. A coin. He could have said, oh, bring like $18, bring 18 silver coins, bring a nice amount of money. He said, just bring a tiny coin. What in my memory? Give like 5 cents. What? 5 cents in memory of Rabbi Nachman? No, I have to give $1, I have to give $2. He said, no, even 5 cents. Don't feel beneath your dignity to give a coin. Okay? Sorry, if we can just remain quiet here. I don't want interruptions. Okay? Sorry about that. Okay? So this is the idea that Rabbi Nachman has lowered himself to us. So let's go back to the letter. We'll stop here because we spoke. We did 2 lines in the letters. I'm telling you, there's so much in these letters. So much. So again, Rav Nosson saying, all my words, they're novea, they emanate, they're flowing from the words of the Nachal Novea Mekor Chochma, from the words of the flowing brook, the source of wisdom. Which means, when you are learning Rav Nosson's writings, you are learning Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Rabbi Nachman's teachings equals Rav Nosson. Okay? They work hand in hand. They say in Breslov, Nachman ben Natan, Rav Nosson, kachada chashive, they're considered as one. Rav Nosson once said about himself, he pointed to Rabbi Nachman's grave, he said, my place is here, I'm to be found here. Even though his actual grave is in Breslov, but his presence is by Rabbi Nachman's Kever Numa. These 2 tzaddikim, this Rebbe and student tag team, are inseparable. You want Breslov, you want Rabbi Nachman, you're going to need Rav Nosson. There's unfortunately some speaker today who puts down Rav Nosson. He says, Rabbi Nachman was a tzaddik, but Rav Nosson, he was the problem. In history, you see Rav Nosson faced more opposition than Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman had opposition, okay? But Rav Nosson had even more. They wanted to kill him. The opposition, can you imagine, at such a level? At such a concealment? Jewish people trying to kill other Jewish people? It's a repetition of history. The 12 tribes wanted to kill Yosef, okay? And all the discord, the clashes between tzaddikim throughout history. This is the main blockage of Mashiach. If the Jewish people and the rabbis and teachers begin to open their eyes, they say there's tzaddikim, but there's true tzaddikim, a higher caliber. And now, how people are so sick spiritually, all the cases of OTD children, and all the people so messed up, and what they're going through, 3, 4, 5 divorces, Hashem Rachim, people so lost, children messed up and everything, everybody saw it's such a bad place. If it's children of Holocaust survivors or the grandchildren, whatever, and people, all these traumas and everything. So wake up, Am Yisrael, you need tzaddikim at the highest of levels, that they make statements that are so big, and they can help you at the same time. And they prove that they can help even the lowest people of the low. We should be zocheh. We'll continue hopefully in the next class from where we left off. But to appreciate Rav Nosson's teachings, and he's telling his son, they emanate from the flowing brook, the source of wisdom. So we spoke about a lot of things. If you want to reach out and you want to have questions or talk about this, you can contact me on WhatsApp, but only PM, private message only. The number is +1. That's America. Lakewood number 732-800-1863. Once again, 732-800-1863. Shavua Tov, and may we have it only good in life. Thank you for joining.